Like I said, kind of starting, really good to have you guys and have you guys join us on a Wednesday night. I know there's a lot going on with different schedules and stuff. So we have a few different, I think we'll have some coaches join as we go. And then we have some lacrosse players here. So we'll do our best to kind of guide it towards you guys and ultimately help your journey. But today we're going to talk about elite performance in youth athletes and the mind-body connection. And I think it's really important to differentiate, not only the physical side, but also the mental side. So me and my friend David with the Tampa Bay Rays, we'll get into it. You can slide, David. Perfect. So a little bit about me. Before we start talking all night, probably important to give you a little bio. My first memories in life were playing catch with my dad in the backyard. My dad's actually on the Zoom call right now, playing catch, carrying a baseball bat and glove with my pops in the backyard. That ultimately led me to where I am today. Just a baseball guy through and through. Ended up playing 6 years of college baseball at two different schools, and at the end of it, came out with a bachelor's and a master's in exercise science. And I'm fortunate now. I'm a strength and conditioning coach with the Tampa Bay Rays in professional baseball. And if you ask anybody, they know I really do feel like I'm living the dream, and I'm really grateful for where I'm at and the different experiences that I've had. The bottom left is just a picture at me at our gym down in Florida, and the top right was my last year playing college baseball at East Stroudsburg University. I dropped a quote here in my bio. Is something that not only has been impactful for, physical development and performance stuff, but also in my life. How you do anything is how you do everything, right? So like all the little details, all the things, all the small decisions, right? Making your bed, going to school on time, doing the small little homework assignment, little things like that. When you put your best foot forward and 100% effort into the little things, you look back and you have a big decision or a crossroad in your life or a big decision to make, and that decision just becomes another thing. And it's easy when you take everything seriously and you pay attention to the details. So that's been a really valuable quote for me, and I wanted to share it with you guys. I'm gonna slide it over to David now.
Sorry, guys, it's gonna take us some time when we do the switch to make it everything look good. But as Vic said, super excited to be here with you tonight to talk about strength and conditioning and mental performance, which are two topics that I love. A little bit about me before we get started. So I'm from Spain. I played soccer my whole life in Spain, and when I was 18 years old, I decided to give it a shot to the college experience here in the state. And I actually was fortunate enough to play 6 years of NCAA D1 college soccer. I went to the University of Dayton in Ohio, and then after that, I went to Southern Illinois Edwardsville University to complete my master's in sports psychology. Did my bachelor's in exercise science. I thought I wanted to be a strength and conditioning coach, similar to Vic, but unfortunately or unfortunately, I found myself having some injuries during my junior year in college that kind of guided me to more towards the sports psychology side of things. But yeah, I mean, everything happens for a reason. That's one of the reasons why I got into the sports psychology world. And right now I'm finishing my master's in clinical mental health counseling as well. I work as a sports psychology consultant for Sisu MPC, which is a company that I created 3 years ago with one of my teammates and another mental performance coach, Harvey Moyes. And I also work as a process and development coach for the Tampa Bay Rays. And Vic and I, we love quotes, we love reading. I personally think that reading it's something that can help you get a better perspective on life, and sometimes we cannot change the things that happens to us, but we can always change the perspective that we have about what happens to us. And this quote, I love it. It's from Paulo Coelho from a book called The Alchemist, and he says that you can either be a victim of the world or an adventurer in search of treasure. It all depends on how you view your life. And for me, this quote is is very personal. I'm gonna see you a few images of my work before I walk where I am tonight in a little bit. But this quote is very personal for me because as most of you that you wanna get to play professional and reach that best version of yourself in your sport. I found myself with the fact that I had to go through 4 knee surgeries in 2 years, right? And after all those surgeries, even though I was able to come back one more year and play during that last season, I had to make the decision to step off the field. But that didn't mean that I couldn't do something that I like, which ultimately was to help other athletes reach that best version of themselves using that knowledge from sports psychology. And yeah, so this for me, guys, this is a personal story. The reason why I do that. I mean, I love the sport. I love the day in and out of the athlete. I love helping people reach that version of themselves. But after I stopped playing, I started working with athletes, right? Where I started with soccer, with the sport I love. Then I went into having the opportunity of teaching a sports psychology class for freshman athletes, and that's when I got to see other sports like basketball, cross country, wrestling, baseball, softball, lacrosse. We had a lot of sports at SIUE, and I love work with Chief and every one of them. And then after that, I had the opportunity to work with the race and into the professional world, and I also had the opportunity to teach these sport psychology concepts that we're gonna learn later tonight to some companies. So again, I think psychology, the world of psychology, we can always learn something else about our thoughts, our emotions, and how we behave in the world, and we can always find more tools that are going to allow us reach that best version of ourselves, but also is going to allow us to develop into that better person, right, on and off the field. So it's pretty cool to see how we can apply those concepts for not only for athletes but for people in general as well.
Nice. So we'll get into it a little bit here. Now that you know a little bit about us, we're going to talk about a little bit of content and hopefully you guys find some value out of this stuff. Like David said, we like to read, and I have a few books that I'll talk about throughout my slides today that I think were really impactful for me and my journey, and I just find myself using a lot when I talk to athletes, especially young athletes. So The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. This book is by Stephen Covey. And really, what I want to make emphasis here is having a holistic approach and really thinking big picture when you think about your development in your life. And I'm going to go through these 7 habits. The first of which is be proactive. Right? When I think of proactive, let's use the lacrosse girls as an example. Like, what's being proactive? I know I'm supposed to have breakfast, right? But if the night before I don't think about breakfast or I don't put any preparation to it, then sometimes it gets hard and I just rush to school. Instead, I think about breakfast, I do an overnight oats, or I talk to my parents and be like, hey, can we make sure we have breakfast at this time before I go to school? That would be being proactive. Number two is begin with the end in mind. So like when you start a journey or a process or you want to work hard on something, think about where you want to be in the long term, a year from now, 2 years from now. For my lacrosse girls, like, do you want to play lacrosse in college? If so, where do you want to go? And then how do you trace back your steps, right? Begin with the end in mind. Number three, put first things first. So prioritize. I think you hear that word a lot. Prioritize what's important, right? If your social life is important, then yeah, on the weekends you're hanging out with friends, you're not caring about anything in terms of like physical development necessarily. That's not to say it's a bad thing. It's just that's where your priorities are. Versus if I prioritize, athletic development, I'm waking up early to have breakfast. Or for example, today, Wednesday, right? These girls are going to train. Like that is prioritizing what's important or where you want to go. Number four is think win-win. So, right, whenever you have a relationship with somebody or have interactions, you want both parties to be elevated or to be better for it. So, like, think of what we're doing here. We want to ultimately help you guys, and we know that throughout this whole process and all the preparation we've done, we feel like we've put a lot of work in to get better as ourselves and put this stuff together. So, ideally, you guys get something out of it, and we get something out of it. This would be an example of a win-win. Number five, seek first to understand, then to be understood. I have a question. Do you ever find yourself thinking of a response to somebody before they're done talking? Like somebody's talking about their day or whatever they're talking about, and you already think about what you want to say back to them. That would be an example of first. Ainsley says yes, right? That stuff happens all the time, right? So I encourage you to start thinking about like completely putting yourself in somebody else's shoes and their perspective and just listening to what they have to say and then come up with your response. It's more organic, it's natural, and ultimately you get a much better relationship out of it. Number six is synergize, right? Or collaborate, or be together, or have unity, right? Synergize. You want to work with people. Um, I think you guys kind of in terms of synergy, and then also the last one, sharpen the saw, which is like always learning. Um, you guys are doing a really good job of that today. You're meeting new people, you're seeing new faces, and you're also just trying to get better, right? That's an example of trying to work with others, but also trying to sharpen your saw and keep learning and get better. So credit to you guys. We could actually, let me touch on these bullet points. I have a quick analogy. Slow cooking, right? What's the best food that you have? Best food is like a seasoned steak that's been aged, or like a crock pot that you cook something in for days, or something that you leave in the oven for a long time. When you cook something for a long time, the product or the food is always better. It's the same thing with your training and your development and your mental health. It takes some effort on the forefront, but you have to have patience with the process. And then when you look back years later, you're like, yes, I slow cooked that and I ended up way better for it. You could hit the next one, David. Nice long-term athletic development. Um, I'll just make a point. I, the things I'm going to talk about today are based in research, and me and David find evidence and the literature to be really important, but I don't think I'm going to talk about it much today. Um, just know that there's an emerging field of research. I have to shout out Dr. Rick Howard, who's a professor in Pennsylvania. And on the right side of the screen there, I have a position paper by the National Strength and Conditioning Association, or NSCA, pretty much all about how to help youth athletes and kids achieve their goals, not only physically, but ultimately to become adults and happy people. So everything I'm talking about is kind of based in research. I'm not just a guy on a Zoom call. I try to make it as informative as possible. Um, so this is an interesting topic. What's the deal with early sports specialization? All right, let's use a lacrosse example again. And I don't know where you guys are in your life, or too much of who you are, right? So, but I will say, like if you're let's say a lacrosse example, if you only play lacrosse, some things make it really difficult in the long term, like when you get to high school or when you get to college. If you only play lacrosse your whole life, just in terms of the movements, the people you interact with, the different experiences you have, sometimes it makes it very difficult to build this really broad foundation of physical development, and also social and mental stuff. So just be cautious of playing the same sport throughout the course of the year. Try to, go play with friends. Try to go do pick up basketball, pick up soccer, play World Cup with your friends. Try to play as many sports as possible, whether it's organized or not, because it's going to build this really nice foundation of movement quality, and having to react to different things and overcome movement challenges. I'll drop a quick example. I don't know if you guys watch baseball much. I know we have a few baseball people in here. Mookie Betts is pretty regarded as one of the most athletic players in terms of professional baseball on the planet. And Mookie Betts can bowl a 300 right now. It's crazy to think about. He's an amazing baseball player, but he's also a great bowler. And it just goes to show, when you grow up and you play these different sports, it just provides you an opportunity to, when you want to be an elite athlete, or when you want to make that jump to college or professional, you have this wider base of movement when you play other sports. So I encourage you guys to just think about some of those things. And then the last one, kind of tying in with that, is just, the problem with travel and showcase teams, and not to say they're a bad thing, there's a lot of positives that come out with them. It's just you want to be cautious. I put a picture here of like the AAU basketball circuit these days. This is really common, like for people to play 3 games on a Saturday and 3 games on a Sunday. It's like it doesn't really align with physiological principles. Like we want kids to have fun, play games, and that stuff is great, but we also want to expose them to a lot of different things. So in the long term, they're more suited to have success. So a few notes of caution there, just regarding long-term athletic development. Could hit the next one, David. Got a video here. This is me deadlifting. There you go. That was back in college. That was like a 1 rep max trap bar deadlift, and then I got the little baby on the bottom left, killing it with the weights. Fundamental movement pattern. So this is more nuts and bolts, if you will. I know my lacrosse girls will be doing a lot of this stuff this evening with Kara. but squat, hinge, push, pull, really simple movement patterns that you'd think of, squat, dumbbell goblet squat, lunge. A hinge would be like a deadlift or an RDL. A push would be like a push up or a bench press. A pull would be like a row or a pull up. These are just the kind of movement patterns that you want to hit with frequency throughout your training age, throughout middle school and high school. That provides that really good foundation. And then I kind of have some bonus points, if you will, with sprinting, jumping, and especially important with youth athletes is understanding landing positions and how to land. And then you have rotating, like throwing med balls, crawling, and carrying. So just some fundamental movement patterns there that I wanted to list that I think are important not only for youth athletes, but actually for older athletes and that I use in my professionals as well. Big point, make training fun. How many games can we incorporate into the warm up? How many games can we incorporate into the lifting we're doing? Right? We want you guys to think about it as a fun experience. We want you to want to show up to train. So as much we can do to gamify things when we talk about training, usually the better off people are. I have a little template here. Um, maybe it doesn't provide too much context for the lacrosse girls, but some others might find some value out of it. Just super basic on how to kind of pair our squat patterns in different games, as well as a deadlift in different games. Um, and just the sets and reps aren't too important, but just keeping it basic. And I will say a note, like I said, start with a game to engage, move freely, and have fun. We could do that to kind of start a training session. It's just people want to show up, they want to do those things. And then lastly, I'll just do some math with you guys real quick. Let's say we have a freshman high school athlete, and they train twice a week, no ifs, ands, or buts, but only twice a week. It's not a lot throughout the entire course of their high school career. What is that? 52 weeks in a year. Times that by two, you get 104, and you do that for 4 years. That's over 400 training sessions throughout high school. That is how you create a really good foundation. And it's only twice a week. It's not too much. You can carve that time out. So we'll talk about this, but it just shows consistency is key. There it is. Consistency wins, guys. It's key. I drop another book here for you. Like I said, I'm a big reader. I think this is an awesome read if you guys feel like you're ready for it. It's Atomic Habits by James Clear. And the whole concept is small changes or daily habits and the things you do today over the long term create huge results. So people think you make a really big move or you make a really big decision and then everything turns around. It's not really how this thing works. It's making the most out of today, making the most out of the present moment, and doing that for a long time. And then ultimately you look back and you're like, wow, like all that stuff I did actually worked. This kind of ties into delayed gratification and just the difficult things in the moment or in the short term, doing them because you know they're the right thing to do. And then in the long term, you look back and you're like, yeah, that was delayed gratification. I overcame that stuff and I'm better off for it. Huge point I want to make to you guys. Consistency or exercise adherence, like training 2 times a week, for example, throughout high school, is much more important than any great program, any sets and reps, any exercise that you could do. Your consistency gives you the most bang for buck on your development. So if you could stay consistent in the weight room or your training or whatever you like to do over the long term, that's going to bear a lot of fruit and have some good results for you. I'll pass it off to David here to talk a little bit about the marshmallow test.
Yeah, we thought it was an interesting study, guys, that I think we can all take a lot from it. But basically, what they did during this study, they wanted to find out how delayed gratification can help us make better decisions in the future, right? So basically, what they did, these researchers, was to put a bunch of kids in a room, right? And they will meet them individually, right? So they will be a kid and a table, and in the table they will have a marshmallow, right? Then an adult will come into the room and I will say, hey, I know you have a marshmallow in front of you. You're probably pretty hungry right now, but if you wait, when I come back, I'll bring you another marshmallow. But for you to have both, I need you to wait for me. You cannot eat it. You cannot eat the one that you have in front of you. So at the beginning, every kid said, yeah, okay, like no problem, I'll wait. and it's pretty funny too. There are a couple of videos on YouTube where you guys can watch what actually happens in the experiment. But it's pretty funny to see the kids doing everything that they can to not eat it, right? Like they start to sweat, they start to smile. They're just trying to figure out how to wait, right, and how to delay that gratification. But the adult comes in, and what they saw is that there were some kids that they were able to wait, right, for that second marshmallow. So the kids will have both, but there were other kids that weren't able to wait, and they would eat the first marshmallow, right? So basically, they will let them that drive of I'm hungry now and I can't wait to eat the marshmallow, and then they will eat it, right? And they wouldn't wait. And they kept following those kids, and they saw that during high school and college ages, those that were able to wait for that second marshmallow, they had a better academic, they had a better academic scores and outcomes in life, right? So they also had more self-worth, they had a higher self-esteem, and most importantly, they were better able to cope with the stress, right? During our lives, on the field and off the field, we're all gonna have stress. They have stress when they are going through their day to day, and the concept basically what these research can help us a little bit understand is that even though you might have to make a decision based on, and sometimes those are simple decisions, right? Like, do I sleep today 6 or 10 hours? Do I stay on my phone for 2 hours before I go to bed, or do I go to bed and get a full night of sleep, right? Like those small decisions that can help you be better in the long term. At the end of the day, that they are super small. But if you keep making the right decision over and over and over again, you're gonna have better results on and off the field.
Thanks, Bobby. Really well said. You could slide over to the next slide. So we wanted to leave you guys, excuse me, with little action steps, just to kind of review the stuff I just talked about. And obviously, I had to put Will Ferrell here just to finish me off. I want you to take a moment to think about your daily habits. How could you make them better, right? Do you stay on your phone, like David said, before you go to sleep and watch TikTok? That is not going to be the best for you. What do your daily habits look like? And then how can you make them better based on where you want to be in the future? Build the foundation. We talked about it, right? Play different sports, do different things, interact with different people, chase exercise, build that foundation, and it's going to pay off for you in the long run. Humans like to have fun, right? I love to have fun. Everybody does. The more we can gamify, the more we can encourage athletes to have fun and put them in an environment of training or whatever it might be to have fun, the more results they're going to get out of it and the better it's going to be for them. And lastly, consistency is key. Consistency wins, guys. Doesn't matter the special program, the special exercise, the new big thing. No, the old big thing that stood the test of time is consistency, and that's going to win.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, Vic. I think that's a huge information, great information for all athletes and the coaches that are watching this webinar. I know we have the chat function, so I'm gonna try to use them as best as I can. But before we get into sports psychology, mental skills, and how we can train the mind, I would like to ask you guys a question that I ask my athletes when I work with them, and I ask my athletes every time that I have a team session. At the beginning, especially, I try to ask this question. Okay, so if I were to ask you, how important do you think physical preparation is from 1 to 10? From 1 to 10, how important you think physical preparation is? Could you share your answer in the chat?
Really gives it an
8.
8.
Okay.
Like it.
Mm-hmm. We got a 9 with Nicole. Stella, 9. 8, Teresa. Thank you. Awesome. So pretty important, right? 8, 9. No one said 10, and Vic, I think you're gonna have to give another talk right before we finish the meeting to emphasize how important it is. But yeah, pretty important. You guys know that it's pretty important, right? To train that physical component on the sport. Now, how many days per week do you train those physical skills? Out of 7, how many days do you train it? For 5, 4, 4. Okay, awesome. So 4, 5 out of 7. That's pretty good. That's awesome. Okay, so now if I were to ask you, how important you think mental preparation is for you guys? 10, 10, very? Yeah, I didn't specify it's from 1 to 10. Yeah, 10. I like it. I like it, Teresa. You were fast now. Important. Okay, Nicole. Yeah, it's important, right? 10. Okay, I'm glad that you guys give it a 10 out of 10. Now, if I were to ask you, how many days out of the week you train your mind? Zero. No, I love the honesty. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Fred, for the honesty. Okay, not much. Yeah, this is usually what happens, right? So we know the physical part of the sport and the mental part of the sport, they are important, right? 8 out of 10, 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10, we know that are important. But when it comes to that mental preparation, we don't train it that much, right? And sometimes it's because we don't really know how to train it, right? Sometimes, our coaches, they tell us, okay, I want you to be more focused, or I want you to be more confident, or what's going on with you today? Like you don't have a lot of motivation today. I need you to be more motivated. Okay, but how do I do it? This is what we're gonna talk about today, guys. How we can train the mind. We know it's important. We know we should train it a couple of days per week, right? If you ask me, it's something that you should train every day. But we also need to understand and know how we can train it, and that's what we're gonna talk about today. So here are 3 mental skills that I think are super important for every athlete. When you watch interviews, when you read books, when you watch professional sport, you see that all those athletes that they were able to reach to the best of their ability, they're able to be resilient, they have confidence in themselves, and they're also motivated. Not only they're resilient, confident, motivated, but they know how to train these mental skills, right? And these skills are super important because as much as we want to have good days, right, we're gonna have some really bad days too during our week, right? Either if that's because we might struggle with an injury or because things are not the way that we want on the field. But we need to find something that is gonna help us be more resilient and feel more confidence in those moments where we might not have we might not feel too confident about ourselves, maybe because we made a couple of mistakes during the game, or because the coach had some words that were a little bit disencouraged towards us. We need to find a way to feel more resilient, confident, and to stay motivated. So when we talk about being resilient, that's going to help us see every setback that we have as an opportunity for growth. And I'm going to refer to what I said at the beginning of the presentation, where again, we sometimes we cannot control what happens to us, right? We all have bad days, we all have difficult conversations with someone, we all had games where we left the game and we're thinking, okay, I'm not doing this anymore, I'm done, right? We all have those thoughts. The fact that we have a thought doesn't mean that it's true, right? But sometimes we're gonna face setbacks, right? We're gonna we're gonna make mistakes. So we need to find a way, we need to find something that is gonna allow us, instead of what every other average athlete will do, which is to say, okay, I'm known for today. I don't really like to give my 100% today. Okay, I'm gonna take some time. I'm gonna analyze that again. I'm gonna take it as an opportunity for growth. I'm gonna see what I can learn from this, and we can train this skill. Then, when we talk about feeling more confident, when you feel more confident, you are able to feel more calm under pressure, right? So, if I were, to ask you to think about a high pressure moment that you had, that in during practice or during a game, right? Were you feeling calm? Were you feeling in control? Were you feeling ready for that situation, or you let your self doubt creep? into your movement patterns, right? Into that play. And sometimes that's what a lot of athletes go through. They are really good during the training session, but then when the game comes, they are not able to show their abilities. And they are the same person physically, right? Like when you look at their strength and their ability to play in the sport, during practice session everything goes great, but then when it comes to the game, it's a little bit different, and we don't really understand why. And sometimes it's because that player doesn't feel too confident on himself, even though everyone is telling me, hey, you're good, you're doing great. That player, for whatever reason, is not feeling too confident, and this is something that we can train as well. And then when it comes to that motivation part, we are all gonna have those bad days, right? Those days where we wake up, it's raining outside, and we're like, it seems like I don't want to go with the day, right? Or maybe something happened at home, and then when I come into the training session, I'm not feeling at my best because I'm still thinking about something that happened at home. I'm not motivated today, and for whatever reason, things don't work out the way that we want. But there are ways that we can train our motivation as well, and if we're able to train it every day, that's going to help us stay consistent with our preparation, which ultimately is going to help us perform better on the field. So resiliency, right? How to be more resilient. I'm gonna be super quick with the definition, right? But when we think about someone that is resilient, we refer to the ability that that athlete or that person has to come back from a difficult situation, right? We can put the example of an injury, or after you make a couple of mistakes during the game, or after you have a bad game. How do you come in during that next day, that Monday? Are you still thinking, about all the things that you could have done better? Are you still thinking about, like how bad you did, or are you looking at that game from a more positive perspective? These are things that we can train, because we're also sometimes educated in the culture of, okay, every time that you can make a mistake, we have to penalize that. And mistakes, guys, they are opportunities for growth. But sometimes we forget that, right? And I want you to think about, probably you don't remember this, but I want you to try to think about what your life was when you were a baby, right? When you were a year old, right? And you were trying to learn how to walk. Every time that you were during that process of learning how to walk, and your dad or your mom was calling you, you weren't thinking every time that you fall, oh, how bad of a baby I am because I don't know how to walk. No, you fall down. You were trying to walk. You were trying to reach your dad or your mom, and you just stood up again. And sometimes we forget that, right? Because of something that happens in our lives, or because of how sometimes that comes from team pressure as well. Sometimes we forget that mistakes, they're only opportunities for growth. The same way that you have to tell yourself in that moment, okay, I gotta keep going, I have to stand up and I have to keep walking. The same way you can say that to yourself now, today, yesterday, and tomorrow. But sometimes we forget that, and everything comes from having that understanding that, okay, if I want to be more resilient, I gotta find a better way to talk to myself during those scenarios. So one of the questions, right? One of the questions that we can ask ourselves in those moments, during those difficult moments. Let's say that like the same way that I did, you are someone that had to go through an injury, or a player, an athlete that is going through an injury as well. You start hanging around that player, and you see that player is not happy, that player is not motivated, that player doesn't want to be there, right? And those emotions, they are normal. Obviously they're completely normal, because that player is processing what's happening to them. But it's gonna be a point where that athlete has to decide, okay, I know I'm facing, let's say that I have to be off the field for 2 months. I have to find something that is gonna allow me to give my best during that day today. Because if I'm only thinking about those things that I cannot control, like the fact that I'm not playing, every day is going to be a bad day. Because I'm focusing on those things that I cannot control. Right now, during these 2 months right here, I can't control that I'm not playing. What can I control? Well, I can give my best attitude when I come into the rehab session, on the session with the strength and conditioning coach. Or I can read something about my sport, or I can watch games about my sport. I can learn a little bit more from that tactical and technical aspects that are going to allow me to be better once I'm back on the field. But again, if you are only focused on those things that you cannot control during that difficult time, it's going to be really hard for you to be happy. It's going to be really hard for you to feel motivated because your mind is only going on those things that you cannot control. And this is a really good quote that I love from John Gruden, which is one of the best basketball coaches in history. And he said that do not let what you cannot do interfere with what you can do. Sorry, someone was coming in as well, tuning the webinar now. And it's so true. It's so true. At the end of the day, guys, these quotes and these exercises, they are cool, right? To hear about them. They work, but they require time and effort, right? And it requires that exercise of, okay, I have to put some more perspective into it. It's the same way when you are in school, right? After you have, a bad grade or you have a difficult conversation with a professor, you can either focus on those things that you cannot control, like the bad grade that you already have, or you can hit the library again and study for the next one, right? And sometimes the timing that it takes you from focusing on those things that you cannot control from the ones that you can are what's going to determine how successful are what you do. So the more that you can ask yourself this question, the more resilient that you're going to be. But then the second step will be to identify those things that you can control. Then when we talk about confidence, for the next webinar, I'll make sure that I have some lacrosse high pressure moments in this slide as well. But when we talk about confidence, right? Confidence is basically the ability that we have to believe in our own ability, right? So before you shoot a PK, before you do a serve, before you shoot a basketball, before you play any sport that you're playing, right? Before you are performing that action, you know that you're going to be successful. You don't know if you're going to be successful or not, right? Like we see the soccer playing on the screen. He doesn't know if he's going to score or not. But right before he's going to shoot that ball, he has the feeling, he has that emotion that he's going to be successful. This is what confidence is, right? That ability to believe in yourself. So I want us to take to do maybe 20 seconds to think about how you're talking to yourself during high pressure moments. And high pressure moments are very individualized, right? I've worked with athletes that they get very nervous during practice sessions, and then during the games they're completely fine. And I have other athletes that is the opposite. Like every time that during practice sessions they feel super confident about themselves, but once the game comes and they make that first mistake of the game, that confidence is not the same. So I want you guys to think for a little bit. Okay, what are the things that you're saying to yourself during those high pressure moments? Because that's gonna dictate how confident you feel, right? Like before, like the baseball player that we have on the screen right now. Okay, what do you think he's telling himself right before that pitcher is throwing that ball? Well, if he's thinking about, maybe he had a bad play before and he made a couple of errors on the field, or things are just not going well for him in that game, and he's focusing on that, he's probably not going to feel too confident about himself, right? But right before that ball comes, he's thinking, okay, I'm going to take a deep breath. I'm going to calm myself down. And I know I can do this. I know I can do this. And once the ball comes, he just let his preparation speak for himself. And there is a really cool quote from Steve Nash, who said that confidence comes from preparation and the belief that you have the skills to succeed. And I wanted to put on capital letters those two things, right? Preparation and belief. Now, if I'm gonna try out for the lacrosse team, but I haven't prepared well enough, and to be honest with you, I have never played, right? But if I go into a trial right now, I probably won't be successful, right? Because I haven't prepared enough. So preparation is super important, right? You obviously need to be spending time in those things that you need to work on to be better. But there is that second part too, right? Which comes from that belief, and that belief that's a mental thing, right? We have to work with our athletes, we have to work with our athletes on helping them believe in themselves, right? And now, how do we do that? How do we help them believe in themselves? Well, we can work on our self-talk, right? And this is a slide that once we're done with the webinar, I'll be happy to share it with you guys too. So you can do when you can do it at home as well, if you want to. But I'll run through them really quick before I go into motivation. But it's very important when we talk about confidence, right? And self-talk, we can use self-talk to improve our confidence, right? During those days when we don't feel too confident about ourselves, we can work on our self-talk. So the first thing that we need to do is, okay, in those moments where I haven't felt too confident about myself, how am I talking to myself, right? And this is an exercise that can take you literally from 5 to 10 minutes. But again, to the question that I was asking before, right? Like how many days per week are we spending on training our mind? It's important that we spend time the same way that you have to do your 45, 50 minutes of a lifting session. It's important that you spend 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 30 minutes working on how you can improve yourself so you can improve your confidence during those moments. So this exercise invites you to reflect on those moments where you didn't feel too confident about yourself, and then okay, you write down, okay, this game happened on a Saturday, this is how I was feeling, this was the play that I was going through, and then you write down those negative thoughts that came to your mind. And sometimes those negative thoughts are unconscious, and until we don't take the time to reflect on those, we cannot understand what those thoughts were. That's why it's so important to spend some time working on this. And then the third question will be, okay, I've analyzed that I have, one or two negative thoughts that are affecting my confidence. What are some positive statements that I can tell myself during those moments that are gonna help me be successful? In the example that we were seeing before with the baseball player, right? What are some things that he can tell himself that are gonna make him feel more confident before he hits that next at bat? And sometimes it comes from thinking, about someone from your family, thinking about a quote, thinking about, something that is gonna allow you to feel more confident during those moments. And here is the thing that I wanted to emphasize to you. These exercises are very personal, right? Maybe Victor had his own self-talk, right, before his advice when he was playing baseball in college. And maybe if I say the same things to myself that Victor said to himself in those moments, I don't feel anything because it's not personal. So this is a very personal exercise, and that's why it's important to spend some time reflect on those things that could allow you to feel more confident during those moments.
Nice. David, if I could interject real quick,
Mhm.
when we were talking, I had a quick story. That's more of a baseball story, so I'll try to relate it to lacrosse because I know we have some lacrosse players. But I remember back when I was playing at Rowan University a few years ago, we had a professional baseball player come in and talk to the team. I think he was with the Reds, um, big leaguer, I think at the time. And he said to the team something that really stuck with me and the team as a whole that year. When he struck out from the pitcher on his way back to the dugout, he was always thinking he got lucky. That pitcher got lucky, and he doesn't want to see me again. So like to relate it to lacrosse, it's really cool like self-talk, and everybody is personal and different in their own way. But to see his example was cool, and to try to relate it to lacrosse is like, hey, if I lose a lacrosse game, obviously we wanted to win and we wanted the result. But if I walk off that field with my teammates and I say, we may have lost, but they do not want to play us again because they got lucky. That's like a cool way to try to reframe some things and self-talk and ultimately have some confidence in the long term.
I love that example, Vic. Thank you for sharing that. And then, guys, the last skill, right, that we're gonna talk about today, motivation. Motivation is basically that internal drive, that energy that is gonna allow us to act in a certain way, right? To pursue our goals. And it comes from outside, but it comes from within too. Like a teammate, can give you some encouragement, or a coach can give you some encouragement. But we know from research that the motivation that lasts is the ones that you find within you, right? So there is some specific way that we can work about this, and we're gonna see a quick exercise. But I want you to think about, that person that we all have this friend, right? That for whatever reason he is always too negative. If he's not complaining about the weather, he's complaining about another friend. If he's not complaining about that, he's complaining about something that's going on in the world. That person that has like that negative aura around them, right? We all have a person like that in our lives, and obviously there are ways that we can help them, but one of them will be to help them reflect on like we saw before, what things something same to themselves, right? But another thing will be to help them reflect, okay, I know you think about this specific situation in this negative way, but hey, let's try to worry about you, okay, worry about the things that you can accomplish today. And the way that we can work on a motivation or help that person with the motivation is to talk about their goals, to talk about the goals that they have from them for themselves. So here is a really cool exercise that I've done with my athletes too, when it comes to working on that goal setting and ultimately impacting their motivation. And it's 5 simple steps, right? So the first thing that you're gonna do is you're gonna define your goal. Okay, what is a specific, measurable, and realistic goal that you want to accomplish, right? What would be something that's in your mind right now that you know if you accomplish that, it's gonna make you very happy. Then in the second step, we need to make sure that we have a timeline there, right? We need to set a timeline. So when would you like to achieve this goal? This is important, right? Because if I say, okay, I wanna right now, right? If I just say to myself, I want to be a professional soccer player. Well, for me, it's not the time anymore, right? Because I already have my time. So that's an unrealistic goal for me, and that's also I can make it during that time. But it's important that we specify the time because those moments where we don't feel too motivated about ourselves, we are gonna create that sense of urgency. Hey, you said that you wanted to win the state championship. Okay, so I need you to be locked in during this session because you said that you have this goal in this specific time. And then you also need to identify your why, right? Why is this goal important for you? Why is winning a state championship important for you? Maybe it's to make yourself proud. Maybe it's to make your family proud. Maybe it's so you get this sense of I made it. All the time and effort that I put into it, it was worth it, right? So you need to identify what that goal was important for you. And then we're gonna break it down. Okay. So you have this specific goal, we've set a timeline, we know why it's important. Now we're gonna make sure that we have 3 things that if you do them continuously, if you try to do those 3 things every single day, are gonna help you get closer to your goal. And ultimately, we wanna make sure that we track our progress, right? So having this goal and having those steps, identify what's important for you and having that time, we also want to find a way to measure it. In that example, right? Let's say that you want to win the state championship. Well, maybe some games during the season don't go the way that you want, but that doesn't mean that you're making progress, right? Maybe your team lost, but you had a successful individual performance. Or maybe it's the opposite. Maybe that day wasn't for you, but your team had a really good game, right? So you want to make sure that you're tracking that process so you are still able to feel motivated during those days. And here we have an example from a high school basketball player, right? He has the goal of increasing his free throw shooting from 60 to 75%. He set a deadline or a timeline. He wants to accomplish that by January 31st, 2025. And he's also identified his why. Okay, I'll have a higher chance of making the varsity team. That's his goal right there. And then he's gonna break it down, right? What are 3 things that if he's able to do them consistently are gonna help them to stay close to that goal. So the first one is to a 5-minute visualization before each team practice. Then he's gonna review his shooting with a coach once a week. And then the third step will be to practice 50 free throws after every single practice. As I go through this example, guys, I know we have people from different sports, but I invite you to reflect on how you can use it either for yourself as an athlete or how you can use it with your athletes as a coach. And then he's also gonna track his progress, right? Okay, he's gonna count the number of free throws he makes out of 50 each practice, and then he's gonna write it down. Because that way, when you track it down, those days when you don't feel too motivated, oh, maybe I don't want to get this lifting, or I'm not feeling like it today, and then you have the paper right there, and you have the reason why you did it, but you also are able to see, okay, I'm making progress. I'm making progress right here. That's going to help you feel more motivated as well. And then, guys, this is my last slide, but I wanted to touch on some action steps that I think are important when it comes to training the mind, and when it comes to helping our athletes feel more mentally and physically ready. At the end of the day, we either want to create an environment where we feel comfortable talking about our challenges, and that's, with that might be with a coach, or that might be sometimes with ourselves, or that might be with a family member or with a friend. But if you're going through a difficult time, it's important that you talk about it, right? If your athlete is going through a difficult time, it's important for you as a coach to create that environment where that athlete can be honest with you. Because at the end of the day, with this exercise too, when it comes especially with training the mind, it's very important that we get that subjective experience and those subjective thoughts from our athletes. When I talk about confidence, I maybe talk about confidence from my own perspective, right? But I want to understand, okay, how confident are you feeling today? And if you're not feeling too confident, why? Because maybe I start making my own assumptions based on my own observation that have nothing to do with why the athlete is experiencing that, low level of confidence, resiliency, or motivation. So it's important that we create that space for our athletes so they can be honest, and then we can find and work on some plans together. So we are more successful at helping them perform, but also helping them feel comfortable sharing those thoughts. um, and also, guys, I think it's important, and this is just some general advice when it comes to your career and the long-term career of our athletes, right? Try to focus on the process, especially early on. Especially early on. Even if for whatever reason, like your team is not winning, or things are not going well for you right now, be patient. Wait for the second marshmallow, right? Like we saw in that research. Keep investing in your process, even if that day that you don't feel that you have to. Even if you feel like you don't have the necessary energy to go to the gym or to spend those extra 10 minutes perfectionating the skill that if you spend time are gonna help you be successful. Focus on that. Don't focus that much of the outcome. At the end of the day, you cannot control the outcome. There have been countless times where I've seen athletes, and I experienced it myself, where I played at my best, or my athletes have played at their best, and that day the other team was better for you. Okay, that's fine. I'll take it. I'll keep focusing on the process. I'm gonna keep focusing on my preparation, and I'm gonna keep focusing on the things that I can do, that I know if I do them consistently, I'm gonna help me accomplish the goals that I have for myself. And then training the mind takes time. I give you guys a couple of examples there, but as I said, it's important that if you're going through that analysis of your self-talk, that's gonna take some time, right? So it's time to grab a pen and a paper, and analyze, okay, in that situation where I didn't feel too confident about myself, what are the things that I was telling myself? What are some more positive things that I can tell myself so I feel more in control of the situation? Then you write it down, and maybe after you write it down, that's something that you leave in your locker. So you remind yourself, or the things that you want to say to yourself during those specific moments. And then lastly, guys, I will encourage you to engage in this whole self-reflection process. The research that we share with you here tonight, from that strength and conditioning side, and from this mental performance side, it also comes from our own self-reflection, and analyzing the things that maybe we could have done better as athletes, but ultimately, how now that we have the experience, how can we help other athletes reach that best version of themselves? And sometimes to reach that best version of themselves, it's about how aware are we of the things that are affecting us? How aware are we of the things that we say to ourselves during difficult moments, during good moments? How good are we at spending time in that self-reflection process that ultimately is going to allow us to have better information about how we work in a specific situation, and then make better decisions in the long term? So I'll pass it over to Victor now, see if you have any other words. But again, guys, thank you so much for taking the time tonight to be here. Obviously, if you're an athlete, I'm happy for you because you're taking this extra day to get some more information from that physical and mental side. And if you're a coach, you care a lot about your athletes, and you were hoping to get something from this, which ultimately it's what Vic and I wanted to do, just share some knowledge from our personal and professional experience, and hopefully you guys can put it into practice since today. So again, thank you so much, guys, for being here tonight.
Nice. Awesome. Yeah, just to echo that, super appreciative of you guys taking time on a Wednesday and listen to us talk a little bit. Hopefully you got some value and it helped you. And all of our information's out there online and media and stuff as well. So feel free to reach out to us over email or what have you. Here to help you guys. And this was as much as a learning experience for us trying to put all this together as it was hopefully for you guys to take some tidbits away.